Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about IELTS Speaking Test Part 1. The topic of our lesson is neighborhood. Neighborhood. Now, what is your neighborhood? Your neighborhood is the area where you live and the neighbors around you. So your neighborhood is the area where you live with your neighbors. That is your neighborhood. Now, if you're planning on sitting for your IELTS speaking test, there are some questions that the examiner may ask you. Now, let us look at the questions and some sample answers. Question 1. Do you like your neighbors? Do you like your neighbors? Now, you may answer this question by saying, sample answer 1. Do you like your neighbors? Yes, I do like most of them, although a few of them are not my type. Do you like your neighbors? Yes, I do like most of them, although a few of them are not my type. Okay? Now, if the answer is no, do you like your neighbors? No, not really. I don't really like most of them. Okay? Or you can say, do you like your neighbors? Yes, I get on very well with most of them. Do you like your neighbors? Yes, I get on very well with all my neighbors. I get on very well with all my neighbors. Question 2. What are your neighbors like? What are your neighbors like? What this question is asking you is to describe your neighbors. What sort of people are they? Okay? What sort of people? What sort of characters are they? What adjectives would you use to describe them? Now, if you're not familiar with adjectives to describe people, I have uploaded a number of videos on words that we use to describe people. Okay? Feel free to have a look at my playlist on vocabulary. Now, so what are your neighbors like? So the examiner wants you to use adjectives to describe your neighbors. Remember, an adjective is a word that describes a noun. So you may answer this question by saying, when she says or when he says, what are your neighbors like? In general, majority of my neighbors are very helpful, supportive, and kind. In general, majority of my neighbors are very helpful, supportive, and kind. So in that answer, I have used 3 adjectives to describe my neighbors. That they are very helpful, they are very supportive, and kind. Question 3. Are neighbors usually close to each other in your country? Are neighbors usually close to each other in your country? What this question is asking you essentially is if your neighborhoods are highly populated or sparsely populated. If they're highly populated, it also means that they are densely populated, and that means people live very close to each other. Okay? A lot of people live next to each other. It is overcrowded. Okay? Now, on the other hand, if your neighborhood is not densely populated, then we say that it is sparsely populated, which means that neighbors do not live so close to each other because the neighborhoods are not densely populated. So when the examiner asks, are neighbors usually close to each other in your country? You may say, not at all. My country is not densely populated, so most neighborhoods are not overcrowded. Okay? Are neighbors usually close to each other in your country? Not at all. My country is not densely populated, so most neighborhoods are not overcrowded. Okay? On the other hand, the answer could be, so when she says, are neighbors usually close to each other in your country? Then you can say, yeah, that is actually the case because my country is very densely populated, and that means that most neighborhoods are overcrowded. Okay? Question 4. What is your neighborhood like? What is your neighborhood like? So what the examiner wants you to do here is to describe, use words to describe your neighborhood. Okay? What sort of neighborhood is it? Now, you may answer this question by saying number 4. When she says, what is your neighborhood like? I would say that my neighborhood is very sparsely populated, safe and quiet. I would say that my neighborhood is very sparsely populated, safe and quiet. Now, I have used 3 words to describe the neighborhood. That is, sparsely populated, which means that it is not densely populated. It means that it's not overcrowded. There are very few people who live there. Okay? Now, I have just actually noticed number 3, the answer, not at all. My country is not densely populated, so most neighborhoods are not overcrowded. Overcrowded should be overcrowded, okay? Overcrowded, not overcrowded, okay? Now, so it should be overcrowded. So I forgot the letter D between W and E. Okay, so correct that. Now, so let's move on to question 5. Do you think your neighborhood is a good place for children? Do you think your neighborhood is a good place for children? So what the examiner is asking you here is, do you think, okay, that children who grow up in your neighborhood actually have a good life? Do you think that the children who grow up in your neighborhood have a good quality of life? So when he or she says, do you think your neighborhood is a good place for children? You may answer this by saying, absolutely, it is a very good neighborhood for children because they always feel safe. There are also good facilities for them, such as schools and theme parks to play. Okay? Do you think your neighborhood is a good place for children? Absolutely. It is a very good neighborhood for children because they always feel safe. There are also good facilities for them, such as schools and theme parks to play. Okay? Now, on the other hand, if the answer is negative, do you think your neighborhood is a good place for children? Then you can say, no, not at all. I don't think it is a very good neighborhood for children because there is a lot of crime and there are no schools and theme parks for them to play. Do you think your neighborhood is a good place for children? No, not really. That is because it is not a good neighborhood because the children always feel unsafe. Moreover, there are no good facilities such as schools and theme parks to play. So it depends if you want to be negative or positive in your answer. Now, question 6. How could your neighborhood be improved? How could your neighborhood be improved? Now, what the examiner is asking you here is, now, what are some of the things that you don't have in your neighborhood that you would like to see being there? What are some of the things that your neighborhood lacks that you would like to see there? Okay, so how could your neighborhood be improved? Now, you may answer by saying, number 6, it could be improved through installing more street lights and bins to throw garbage in. It could be improved through installing more street lights and bins to throw garbage in. So in that answer, there are 2 things that would help to improve, to make your neighborhood better, and that is more street lights and bins for people to throw garbage in. Okay? Now, question 7. Do you think that it is important to have a good relationship with your neighbors? Do you think that it is important to have a good relationship with your neighbors? So what this question is asking you, what are the advantages of having a good relationship with your neighbors? What are the good points? What are the benefits? What are the advantages of having a good relationship with your neighbors? Okay? Now, so when the examiner says, do you think that it is important to have a good relationship with your neighbors? Let me say, yes, it is. A good relationship with my neighbors ensures that the neighborhood is peaceful, supportive, and enjoyable to live in. Okay? A good relationship with my neighbors ensures that the neighborhood is peaceful, supportive, and enjoyable. Okay? Do you think that it is important to have a good relationship with your neighbors? Yes, it is. A good relationship with my neighbors ensures that the neighborhood is peaceful, supportive, and enjoyable to live in. Okay? So, as I come to the end of this lesson, there are just a few things that I would like to remind you. Number 1, when you're doing your IELTS speaking test, avoid yes or no answers. If you simply say yes, then you do not showcase a good command in the English language. The examiner wants to see that you can use your English vocabulary to speak about different topics. Okay? And if you're not very confident about that, please do have a look at my playlist on vocabulary. You will find vocabulary, you will find videos on vocabulary that will help you to speak about different topics. Okay? Now, also, when you're asked a question, avoid one-word answers. Explain your answers, okay? And I usually tell my students, try and use 3 words in a sentence. It really helps when you're describing it. Like, for example, look at question 2. What are your neighbors like? I have used 3 words: helpful, supportive, and kind. Okay, it's also so much easier to pronounce that and to say the words. Okay, so don't complicate your life and start saying, what are your neighbors like? Firstly, my neighbors are very helpful because they do blah, blah, blah. Secondly, they are very supportive because they do blah, blah, blah. And finally, they are very kind because they do na. Yes, it is good to use connectors. That is firstly. Secondly, also, furthermore, moreover. But that makes it a little bit complicated if you have to use a connector to explain every single sentence, okay? Every single answer. So try and combine them in threes: helpful, supportive, and kind. Now, if you look at question 4, sparsely populated, safe, and quiet. If you look at question 7, peaceful, supportive, and enjoyable. Okay? So remember, you don't have a lot of time when you're answering these questions, but at the same time, you have to showcase that you have a good command of the English language, that you have good vocabulary to speak on the topic that the examiner is questioning you about, okay? Now, this brings me to the last section of our lesson, where I read out the questions for you. And as I read out the questions, try and think of an answer. Are you ready? Okay. Do you like your neighbors? What are your neighbors like? Are neighbors usually close to each other in your country? What is your neighborhood like? Do you think your neighborhood is a good place for children? How could your neighborhood be improved? Do you think that it is important to have a good relationship with your neighbors? Now, if you're able to answer those questions correctly, well done. And if you can't right now, remember you have the sample answers that you could adapt to your answers. Okay? Now, thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to subscribe, share, and give this video a thumbs up. And until our next lesson, bye bye for now.